This is Brent Feldman, and we are back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. Today, I am joined by Katie Smith. She is the founder and CEO. She is a fractional chief marketing officer at Wild Path Consulting. So, hi, Katie. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here. Looking forward to chatting and digging in and on all these questions. So, I guess maybe first, right off the bat, a fractional chief marketing officer or CMO is a position that seems to be somewhat popular right now. And what makes this role sort of like better as being a fractional role as opposed to maybe having somebody full time in the seat?
Yeah, so I love this role because it allows companies who are maybe smaller or in a growth phase, less established, um, to have marketing leadership when they need it without having to hire somebody. Maybe they don't quite have a full-time position yet, but they could really use that direction, that leadership. I say I do a lot of herding of cats. So occasionally you need someone to come in and herd the cats in the right direction. And you can do it on your time, without having to commit to that full thing. So it's really giving companies a competitive advantage.
That's cool. That's really neat. So this isn't your first company. So, how did you kind of get to this place with Wild Path Consulting?
Sure. So it's not.
Mhm.
My first company was when I thought I loved public relations. And it turns out that I love the relationship of public relations. I love connecting people. Um, I found it to be a little bit constraining. So I went into marketing, and I worked for a few companies. First, I fell in love with inbound marketing because that's about attracting people who need and want your product, and and building that relationship, helping people. I see marketing, you can use marketing for good or for evil, and I like to use it for good. So I love this idea of marketing as a service. It's serving everybody in your company, it's serving your people. But I found that people would hire me for their expertise, but then they wouldn't listen to me as an employee.
Mm,
And I like to work, it's hard for me to just work for one company. I like to have different inputs coming in, different ideas. So I found when I started my second company, I as a consultant, people are more likely to actually take the advice that I'm giving them. And I really like to work with different kinds of businesses because it keeps my mind fresh. It brings in different perspectives. And then I think I'm better serving everybody that I work with.
cool. That's great. Yeah, it is nice to have that kind of diversity in clientele, and all those experiences, I'm sure, lead to like, new opportunities and, and ideas that you can share with, other future clients. So that's cool. I share in the joy of having not just one one place to share those ideas with. So I like this title, but you're known as the queen of the customer journey, which I love that. What's the difference between having a relationship with a client and just straight up selling to them?
Right. So um, I think it's your success rate, really. So if you're just selling, you're kind of just blasting your message out there, with the hope that it's going to hit somebody who's ready to buy. And that can be expensive. And it can be a little time consuming, and it feels a little hollow. But if you a customer journey, you're so right, you hit it right on the head. It's building a relationship with the right people. Your people may not be ready to buy when they first hear about you, or you may have a product or service that takes a long time for somebody to make that decision. And the customer journey allows you to build a relationship with them, to give them bite-sized pieces of information when they need it without kind of fire hosing them. Um, you don't come to them directly with the sale and then they get an icky feeling about you. it gets them to feel connected to your business, to trust your business. When you give them the little bits of information that they need, they feel like you're an ally to them. So then when it gets to the selling part, it makes that easier. And then they become an advocate for you, right? So then they essentially will become part of your sales team. They will speak about you to other people. They will recommend you. And then the people that they bring in will have their selling cycle may be a lot smaller. So I think it just makes a lot of good business sense to cultivate those relationships. Eventually it becomes less work for you. It's more fun for everybody. And it feels really good. And that's really making marketing as a service.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I couldn't feel more the same way. Really, honestly, it's great as you develop those relationships and stuff. It does. It just makes the biggest impact. And you know how people, yeah, feel about you, and definitely and by proxy your organization too. So that's great. Part of your process when you're engaged as like a fractional CMO is to help hire, train, and even fire vendors or employees and contractors. How do you bring this type of information to a client, and how is it received?
I love this question because a lot of the issue that people have when they're not getting enough out of their contractors is there's a miscommunication point, right? So as a business leader, your job is to move your business forward. It's not to understand the ins and outs of digital marketing or, anything like that. So, and your contractors, their job is to know that really well, and they may not know your company as well. So without a translator, you can't get the most. So often I come in and my first thing that I do is I just do a lot of listening. I come in as a collaborator. So I am advocating for you, for the company. I am on your team. I am on your side. And my goal is to get you everything that you need. But often I'll come in, I'll talk to the vendors, I tell them immediately, hey, I want to collaborate. A question that I always ask is, what do you wish you had from the client? Um, and then I can find out where the miscommunication is happening.
Mhm.
And I can provide the vendor with all the information that they need, and I can advocate for the specific goals of the client. And then I can also make sure that the client understands what the vendor is doing. So I do find that that is often what the issue is, but sometimes it's just not a good fit.
Mhm.
Um, and that has happened before. And I always do start with that listening piece, but I can very quickly figure out what's working and what's not working, and if someone's not going to work. And it's not because they're bad at their job. Usually, it's just because there's a misalignment. Recently I had a client when I first came on. It was they're an organization. They have a contract with the government. We're increasing the number of foster parents available, and they work in a state. They wanted to work with an agency in the state. The one that they had chosen had a very strict kind of a regular process that they used, and they couldn't really vary that.
Mm.
But I work with disruptors, and we were doing something different. So we needed someone who could work outside of the box, and they just couldn't do it. And they're a great firm. I have nothing bad to say about them, but their process didn't fit my client. So we fired them, and they still wanted to work with somebody within their state, so they hired another company. And the company couldn't, they just didn't have the experience to do what we needed to do. So
Mhm.
finally I allowed it, but I have a team. I have an agency that I work with. They're problem solvers, they're collaborative. So then finally I was able to bring them in, and now we're on fire. We are we're changing the way things are done in that
Yeah.
industry. So it's all about finding the right fit. And that's one of the things I love about being a fractional CMO and not having an agency, is that I have a handful of graphic designers that I choose, a handful of writers, and I can choose which ones are going to fit into the company and what their goals are, what their marketing mix already looks like. So I can be extremely flexible, which means that we can put a team together really fast that's going to work.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure it's like, a big catharsis when you get rid of a partner that's not vibing. It's just like, I'm sure that that could probably feel really good. And as you said, it's like, oh, and then you kind of release that blocker, that issue, and then yeah, you're going strong on it. So that's great. And certainly, you know what, this is like one thing, it's a little off topic, but it was about something you said about like, finding that right fit in a vendor. And I do feel like that's one of those things that, in an RFP process, you don't get that opportunity, unfortunately. You don't get that personality, culture, sort of and working relationship fit that you can get by just understanding, like the client's need and being on the same page. And so, on paper, somebody might look fantastic and have all the right things theoretically. But, I really appreciate you making the point about, finding that good fit, because that's it to me, to us and what we do too. I feel like that's so important.
Yeah.
Cool. So seeing the business at a really high level gives you a unique perspective on what is going right or wrong. How do you approach things differently if the client is struggling versus when the client is succeeding?
Well, often people come to me when they're struggling.
It's usually probably that. Yeah.
So, there's a lot. So my I don't have a degree. I have a master's degree in public relations, but my graduate degree is in psychology, and I use that every day, right? There's a lot of emotion that's wrapped up for good reason. If you're a leader of a company, there's a lot on the line for you. And in the life of a company, you always kind of get to these plateaus, these hard pieces that you have to break through before you can get to the next level. Those are scary pieces. It's frightening to invest, especially in marketing. People don't understand that it is a formula and it is scientific. They think it's just kind of like magic.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of emotion that we have to work through in order to make that progress. So I come in with a sensitivity to that. I
Mm.
think that's a main thing. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are tied to your business. So the main thing that I do is when I come in is listen. I do so much listening, and not just to the clients. We will listen to the customers. We'll get an outside view, an outside perspective of what needs to be done,
Mm.
and then we'll build the plan. So and I build the plan to what's the goal and what resources do we have. So it's always custom for everybody that I work with. I say that I don't have like a strict process that I use. I have like a recipe book. Or if you wanted to go with the wild path analogy, I have a guidebook and I can kind of flip through, figure out what we need, and make our plan from there. So it's always custom, but it always comes down to listening first. And then it's what are the goals? What problems do we need to fix? And we'll do that. And I don't think I approach businesses differently based on where they are. I think it's always the same. And yeah, I think it's just like, where are we? I got to do my triage. I got to figure out what's going on. And then we build that plan.
That's great. So I feel like this is a kind of key component of it, but I definitely, I want your perspective on this. But like it says like SOPs are part of your deliverables as like CMO advisor, and like documentation is important, but how important is documentation and process to an organization's success for those you consult with?
Yeah. So um, we are creating I'm creating frameworks. I'm going in, I'm creating frameworks. So my goal is to have what we do be repeatable and
Mhm.
eventually without me. I want to build a structure around the organization. I don't want to build a structure around me, because I want them to succeed and grow and invest in other things. So the SOPs, those things are important, but I think it's important to break them down into different pieces because different people learn different ways. So, one of if we do a customer journey mapping session, we're going to build you a custom customer journey, and it's going to be a visual. So, and it's going to be in your company or your industry language. It's not going to be in marketing language because we want everybody in the company to use it, to see where they fit in. So that's a visual system, right? But people will see it. They can follow along with the map where they are or what's happening. So that's an important piece. I do, write up a pretty intense outline of like, this is the step, this is what happens in this step, this is the next step, so that you have an overall framework you can come back to when you're confused. And then, I also do checklists. People love checklists. And so we do, okay, here's what you need to do. And so you have to come up with different ways that are going to work, because this framework that we create, it can't just live on a shelf and look pretty. It needs to be something that people can integrate every day, that they can pull on, that they start to build. Everything kind of starts to flow through it. So you need to be able to go back to it to say, oh yeah, this is what we're supposed to do here. And it needs to be in a variety of ways. And I have clients that I get very detailed. So I'll have people reach out to me 3 years later and they'll say, we finally made it through the checklist. Like we've been implementing everything. Now we need some more help to get to the next level. So I think that's really important. It's not just like something to look pretty or to say that you have it. It has to be functional.
Definitely. I think that almost goes back to like what you had mentioned about, like interviewing the vendors and listening and solving those communication problems. And like, yeah, and if you can like, give people a path, get everybody on the same page, it's much easier to have them, help execute if that communication's there. So yeah, I appreciate tying that all in. I guess, is there a point in acting as a fractional CMO for an organization that you recommend that they just hire a CMO? Like, you're ever just like, what you guys really need is a CMO?
So that's the goal. Like that is my goal, is to get a company to the point where, so often my specialty is really post startup. They're starting to build their marketing team. So it's kind of fractured. They have a little bit going on, and but they're not ready to kind of like, okay, let's hire everybody in. So the goal is to get them to a point where they're ready to have, and maybe it's a marketing director right now, and then I stay on just to come in a couple times a year just to keep steering the ship the right way. Eventually maybe it is a full CMO position, but that's why I want to create a framework that doesn't revolve around me. I want the company to graduate to a spot, and sometimes it's hard. I will know that they're ready. I'll bring it up and they'll be like, we're not ready. We want to keep you. So I help transition my companies through that. So, I'll help them figure out what they want in a position. I'll help them, not usually, sometimes maybe with the interview process, but I try to stay out of that. I'm not HR.
Mm-hmm.
But with the onboarding. So I want to set the company up for success, and I want to set their new person up for success as well. So, and they're going to put their own spin. They're going to take their knowledge, and hopefully they can build on the structure that I've created for them. But I want to make that transition seamless. But that goal is for me not to stay. I'm like Mary Poppins. I come in,
Yeah.
I set everything up, and then I fly away.
Yeah, that's that is a great visual. That's just how you come in and help companies. That's awesome. Well, like one, I guess maybe key point about you coming into these organizations is that you do have to build trust. And that's got to be interesting because, you're kind of you're coming in a unique position to where it's not like, just a vendor or something like that. It's a fractional CMO, a person that holds a position of authority in a company. So how do you, sort of build that trust within a company with the people, so that they can glom onto your ideas and understand that you're the person that's making transformation for good?
Yeah, that is so important. And as a fractional CMO, my job is to work with different portions of the company, right? So I think that marketing can't stay in the marketing department. It's throughout the whole company. I want to know what finance is doing so that I want to gain information from them. Sales and marketing work hand in hand. And even behind the scenes, customer service, they have a wealth of knowledge that can really help us figure out what needs to happen. If you're any kind of like manufacturing or behind the scenes deliverables, I need to know what's going on with them. So to come in as a new person, the way that I approach it, I need to build trust. I need to build it fast, right? I need to do it really fast. So I let people know that I'm here for collaboration, and I ask them about their job, what they're doing, and what they would like to see happen. And then I make notes and figure out how I can make that happen for them.
Mm.
So it's a lot of listening, it's a lot of collaboration, and then it's figuring out how I can show them that I'm here to help them. What can I get done? What can I give them credit for? What can I smooth over for them in that whole process? And it can be tricky, but I do definitely show up earnest and occasionally buy them donuts.
I was going to say the psychology background has to help, for doing that, but also donuts. Um,
It works really well.
yeah, cool. I'm gonna put that in my playbook too. Can't hurt. Well, cool. Well, I guess you encourage playfulness as a part of your core values, and I appreciate that. But it's, an interesting word to use, and especially as you see, like, people are like, oh, we're, transparent, and you're like, okay, you see a lot of but playfulness is a new one for me. How do you think that works into your strategy, or how you interact with clients?
Sure. So a few years ago, I went through some pretty intense burnout.
Mm,
Um, and I don't think that is an uncommon thing, especially in the creative field. And I realized that I was just putting so much pressure on everything that I did that it took the fun and joy out of my work. And in marketing is creative in it, and you should be having fun when you're doing this. But also in my personality, I value fun. So I don't want, I'm not a brain surgeon. I don't have nuclear codes. Like, why was I taking this so seriously? And what I found is by allowing myself to have fun, um, it takes the pressure off of everybody in the room. Marketing is so unserious. Like, we're not, what are, some things we're doing a big deal, but sometimes we're like selling CNC machines or,
mhm.
doing things that are not consequential. And even when we are doing things consequential, the getting to the point of success can be fun. It's fun to succeed. And it allows for creativity and it allows for creative thinking. So when I'm working with disruptors, they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders. But what got them there is being able to think outside the box. And when you're having fun, play is essentially creating, it's thinking outside the box. So it allows for the flow of ideas, for the flow of unique solutions. And it just makes the day better.
Mhm.
We spend a
Absolutely.
lot of time at work.
Yeah, and if it's not fun, like, gosh, why are you there? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate that perspective. And they say like humor and stuff adds a lot to, like work relationships just so that everything doesn't have to feel dry and boring. But I appreciate the encouragement of playfulness in work. It does. It'll make it better.
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess the last question I have for you is really about where you're at. You live in Bozeman, Montana, and by the way, having been to Montana, I feel like there is like the big sky country thing, and like I swear to God, it is. I don't know why, but it is. It's bigger. The sky is bigger. That it doesn't make any sense, but it is. But you have a passion for the outdoors and have navigation system or symbols built into your logo too. How does nature inform or guide what you do?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of everything. So I came to marketing after 10 years of being an outdoor guide. So I spent my days leading people into the backcountry on horseback, on skis, on foot, some occasionally on canoes, and I have that mentality when I come into things, right? So I think the best analogy is when I was a wrangler, taking people into Yellowstone on horseback. I never sat facing forward. I always sat turned to the side in my saddle because I needed to have one eye looking back at my clients. I wanted to make sure that they were having fun, that they were safe, and that there were no real issues with the team there. And then I needed to have one eye looking forward on our trail. So we always had a goal, a destination, but I knew that that could change depending on what happened during the day. And I needed to keep an eye out. Is there a bear? Is there a moose? Is there a down tree? Is there something with the trail? I needed to be able to make decisions based on what was coming up for us. And that's how I approach creating a marketing path, a wild path for us is we know where we want to go. We know what the destination is. I could build you a beautiful plan. And in a perfect world, we would just follow it. But that's not how it is. Something the market is going to change, or something your competitor is going to come up, or something is going to happen. And we need to be able to react to it. And we need to have a plan so that we're ready to react. We have an alternative. We know how to problem solve and move around it. So I really bring that into it. When I do like an assessment, I it's almost like a compass check. Where are we? What's happening? And then we can decide where do we need to go from there
Mhm.
based on our goal. So I like to be flexible. I like to be safe, but also I just love the outdoors. I mean, sometimes I count hiking as like part of work because I'll be puzzling something out, or skiing. I do a lot of Nordic skiing. That's where I do a lot of like puzzling out solutions for problems. So that really fits into my work and my style, and also that's part of the play for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's awesome. It's woven into everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, honestly, that's all the questions I have. I must say I really appreciate you, taking the time and like chatting with me. Is there anything that you'd want to, say or point people towards? I'll make sure to put a link, to the site and in the text. But yeah, if there's anything else you want to call out, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on my website. It's followthewildpath.com. Kind of a fun little URL. But I really like to show up on LinkedIn. My name is Katie Smith. So if you just search Katie Smith, you will find hundreds of people. So if you search Katie Smith Wild Path Consulting, then you'll find me. And that's where I really love to interact. I love to chat with people there. I can talk marketing all day long, and I love meeting new people. So you can even just shoot me a message and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast and would love to chat, or I have this specific question and I'd love to interact with people there. So definitely, come find me on LinkedIn. Always excited to meet new people.
That's great. Yeah, actually mentioning your name, Katie Smith, we actually did have a Katie Smith on our team. So so I certainly understand how that goes. But Katie Smith, Wild Path. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That'll all right. Well, definitely thank you again. I appreciate it. And yeah, and definitely thanks for chatting. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Definitely. Thanks. Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I'm your host, Brent Feldman. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.